Have you ever heard a story so chilling, so bizarre, that it stays with you long after you've heard it? Today, we're re-diving into one of the most perplexing and haunting unsolved cases in history, the Hinterkaifeck murders. This isn't just a crime story. It's a journey into a century-old mystery that continues to baffle investigators and armchair detectives alike. So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's travel back to a remote German farmstead in 1922. Our story begins on a small, isolated farm called Hinterkaifeck, nestled deep in the Bavarian countryside. The farm was home to the Gruber family. Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her two young children, Cecilia and Joseph. Also living with them was the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner. They were a quiet, somewhat reclusive family, known for being hardworking, but also for their internal strife and dark secrets, which we'll touch on later. In the days leading up to the tragedy, strange things began to happen. Andreas Gruber told neighbors about finding a set of footprints in the snow leading from the dense forest to the farmhouse, but none leading away. He heard footsteps in the attic and found an unfamiliar newspaper on the property. A set of house keys went missing. Yet, despite these unsettling signs, nothing was stolen. It was as if someone was living in the shadows of the farm, watching and waiting. The family's previous maid had actually quit her job 6 months earlier, claiming the house was haunted. She said she heard voices and footsteps and felt an unnerving presence. Was it just superstition, or did she sense the danger that was lurking just out of sight? Then, on the evening of March 31st, 1922, the unthinkable happened. It seems the perpetrator, or perpetrators, lured the family members one by one into the barn. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and the elder Cecilia were all struck down with a pickaxe, their bodies left in the hay. The killer then entered the main house. There, they murdered the 2-year-old Joseph as he slept in his cot and the new maid Maria in her bedchamber. The sheer brutality of the act was shocking. But what happened next is what truly elevates this case into the realm of the truly bizarre. For several days, no one noticed anything was wrong. The younger Cecilia didn't show up for school, and the family missed church on Sunday. But because the Grubers were known for keeping to themselves, their absence didn't immediately raise alarm. It wasn't until April 4th, 4 days after the murders, that a search party decided to investigate. What they discovered was a scene of unimaginable horror. The bodies in the barn, the slain maid and child in the house. The entire family wiped out. But here's the most disturbing part. The killer didn't just flee after the crime. Evidence showed that whoever committed these acts stayed at the farm for several days. They tended to the cattle, fed the animals, and ate food from the kitchen. Neighbors reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney over the weekend. Imagine that for a moment. The killer lived in the house, surrounded by the victims, carrying on with the daily farm chores as if nothing had happened. This detail transforms the crime from a simple act of violence into something deeply personal and psychologically terrifying. The police investigation began immediately, but it was plagued with problems from the start. The crime scene was compromised by the many neighbors and search party members who had walked through it. Dozens of interviews were conducted, and over 100 suspects were questioned throughout the years, but no one was ever charged. The motives were just as murky as the killer's identity. Was it robbery? It seems unlikely. A large sum of cash was found untouched in the house, so if not money, what was the motive? This is where the family's secrets come into play. Rumors had swirled for years about an incestuous relationship between Andreas and his daughter Victoria. In fact, they had been convicted of it in court years prior. There was even local gossip that Andreas, not Victoria's deceased husband, was the true father of little Joseph. This dark secret led investigators to consider a crime of passion, or perhaps a conflict that spiraled violently out of control. One of the primary suspects was Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had a complicated relationship with the family. He'd had a romantic relationship with Victoria before it ended, and some believed he was Joseph's real father. He was also one of the first people to discover the bodies, and his behavior at the scene was considered strange by some. He moved the bodies around, which could have been an act of shock or a deliberate attempt to contaminate the crime scene. Despite heavy suspicion, police could never find enough evidence to link him to the murders. On his deathbed years later, Schlittenbauer reportedly made cryptic statements, but never a full confession. Another theory points to Victoria's husband, Carl Gabriel, who was officially reported as killed in action in France during World War I, but his body was never found. This led to speculation. What if he hadn't died? What if he returned to find his wife in a relationship with another man, or worse, with her own father, and sought a terrible revenge? Some German prisoners of war claimed to have met a man who said he was a deserter and had killed his entire family, but these leads were never confirmed. It's a compelling theory, but one without concrete proof. Over the decades, the investigation has been reopened several times, even as recently as 2007 by a German police academy. They used modern forensic techniques to re-examine the evidence, but the passage of time had taken its toll. The original case files were incomplete, evidence was lost, and the skulls of the victims, which had been sent to Munich for examination in the 1920s, were lost during World War II. The students concluded that it was impossible to definitively solve the case after so long, but they did have a primary suspect. Unfortunately, out of respect for living relatives, they have never publicly named that person. So, where does that leave us? We're left with a ghost story wrapped in a true crime mystery. A faceless killer who lived amongst their victims, a family with dark secrets, and a community haunted by an act of violence that was never explained. The pickaxe used in the murders was never definitively identified, though one was found in the farm's attic. It was a common farm tool, impossible to trace back to a single individual. The killer simply vanished, leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. The farm itself no longer exists. It was demolished in 1923, a year after the murders, as if to erase the terrible stain it left on the landscape. Today, a small memorial stands where the farm once was, a solemn reminder of the 6 lives that were so brutally cut short. The story of Hinterkaifeck endures as a chilling piece of German folklore, a testament to the fact that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not supernatural, but all too human. And sometimes, despite our best efforts, the truth remains buried forever in the past. What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck? Was it a neighbor with a grudge? A long-lost husband returned for revenge? Or a complete stranger, a drifter who happened upon the isolated farm? The possibilities are as numerous as they are chilling. This case reminds us that, even with all our modern technology, some mysteries are just too deep, too old, and too cold to solve. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Hinterkaifeck mystery. If you found this story as fascinating and unsettling as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the world's greatest unsolved cases. Let me know your theories in the comments below. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.